Who could disagree that pre-K through fourth graders in North Carolina should not be subjected to this in the classroom? How about this? Ooh, and how about this one? This one's actually shown to pre-K and kindergartners in several school districts across the state this year. Isn't that nice? Nice, friendly little unicorn. What could possibly come from that, right? No big deal. What about this? What about asking children these type of invasive questions during social emotional learning? And what about this one? Do teachers and staff and social workers and other students for that matter deserve to know these invasive little tidbits about your child? What about surveys that are asking these type of questions? These are outrageous. Look at this. I mean, this is ridiculous. And yet, these are the type of things that parents are putting up with or being forced to put up with in public schools, not only public schools, but charter schools across the state of North Carolina. This is outrageous. Who could possibly disagree with it? Well, there's a couple people.
Stand up and yell. Let us do our job as teachers to serve our students.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are rules of this body that apply to everyone in here, including you. This committee is over and adjourned. You are
This is wrong. What you are doing is wrong.
to remove the lady from
You heard her. There were some teachers in there hooting and hollering too. So these are the people that think that they know best for your child, that they think they know best for everyone else's children. In the meantime, they can't even control themselves at a public hearing and anger. I mean, it was unbelievable. Wasn't even in control of herself. These are the people that are out of control, and they want you to allow them to influence their children in the classroom. Well, Senate K through 12, or excuse me, the House K through 12 committee said, nah, not happening. And they are moving the parental rights bill right along, hopefully to receive an up or down vote. I'll tell you about this bill in just a second, but I want to show you some other outrageous reactions from the folks today. There were a couple of people who were in the hearing for HB 808, Youth Protection Act. You know that we have gone on and on about the absolute dire need for it to be passed to ban puberty blockers and hormones and surgeries from children. Watch this guy get up here and talk about this is going to kill the kids.
Blood is on your hands.
Yeah, here's a testimony from another very balanced community member. Check it out.
As a biological reality, denying this health care will force children to go through what I had to go through, which is a quarter century of testosterone poisoning. Puberty blockers would have prevented me from having the body that I do and the voice that I do. But since I have this voice, I will use it to speak out for our rights. I deserved the ability to be able to experience a puberty that belonged to my body instead of one that betrayed it. Because puberty blockers have been used to treat trans people and cisgender people since.
Okay, so you're wondering, was there anyone sane in the room? I mean, this is kind of, nuts here. Well, absolutely. Our very own Michelle Morrow, who is now working with a pavement project, she went off and schooled the entire room on what normal people actually think.
And mother of 5, I think it's important for everybody on the committee to remember that this is not a bill that is targeting citizens of North Carolina. This is to hold accountable the medical professionals in the state. And I think there's something that we need to remember. Puberty is not a disease that requires a treatment or requires surgical modalities. And puberty is a natural process. It is the largest and most important developmental process that every human being will go through. through. And when we're discussing potential medical treatments that are going to be lifelong and are going to impact a child, and potentially they're going to have to take chemicals for the rest of their lives, hormones that we know and have been proven to have the potential side effects of depression, anxiety, psychoses, suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations, as well as heart disease and potential for cancer. That's if I'm taking my own biological hormones. Here are the facts. The endocrine system will produce your genetic hormones for all of your life. So for these young people who are struggling with their identity, all of us, there is not one child who feels like a man or a woman, because they're not until puberty is finished. We are all trans. We're all transitioning from childhood to adulthood. We need to let that process go through and not allow greedy, manipulative pharmaceutical agents who want our young people to end up being on the government dole or on the insurance dole or having to pay for these things for the rest of their lives. This is every complex medical decision needs to be made with foresight. It needs to be made with understanding the pros and the cons. And we all know we know that the frontal lobe is not developed until the age of 25. That is where we have the ability to think of consequences and pros and cons. It's where even our sexual and our social behavior and our ability to impulse control is developed. So allowing children to do things before that time is dangerous.
Isn't that great? Isn't it absolutely understandable? Puberty is not a disease that needs to be treated. So we would think that would be common sense in this day and age, but it's not. Hence the need for laws that should be common sense, but it's not. I know we find ourselves sitting here. So HB 808 did make it out of the Senate Health Committee today, and for very good reason, because in North Carolina, we are seeing schools, teaching hospitals like Duke, UNC, and ECU brag about and advertise for transitioning toddlers, 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. But I didn't see any doctors in any of these hearings from any of the aforementioned facilities. And they're always there, by the way. I mean, for years, they've always been there saying, as a doctor. But you know why we didn't see them? Well, we didn't see them because our reporting had them running for the hills and had the administrators denying they actually do these things. So they probably weren't allowed to come out and into a hearing and admit they actually do these procedures on young ones and air their frustration about not being able to do them anymore. Just to refresh your memory, here's Dr. Deanna Adkins from Duke. She's their head child butcher and sterilizer. Listen to her talk about taking 8-year-olds and giving them puberty blockers to sterilize.
In that age range. And for some of my patients who have significant dysphoria or who started puberty blockers at what would be maybe 8 or 9 years old for someone who's assigned female at birth, I don't want to leave them without any sex steroids in their body for years and years and years. And I want to try and get them into puberty with their peers. And so I may start them, at 13 or so, as we're learning more and more about how well these work and how to avoid things like potential osteoporosis and other consequences of the lack of steroids for a long term.
So these hospitals absolutely are doing this. We know they're doing this. There's no way to run and hide. These things taken together necessitate 3 different bills that we have going. HB 808, just told you about, Youth Protection Act, very important. It's going to ban all transitions on minors in the state, public or private. We also have a similar bill that was heard in the House yesterday. It was a Senate bill, similar, but it just withholds state funding for puberty blockers and for cross-sex hormones. Okay. And then the other bill is a Parental Rights Act. But these are very important. Let me show you some of the tenets of Parental Rights Act right now. Okay, so you're going to see the bill title here. Obviously, Parents' Bill of Rights here. The sponsors, Senators Gailey, Lee, and Barnes. You need to thank all of them, even if you're not in their district.
the bulk of it, okay, in the beginning, it just shows and it restates what the current general statutes say about parental rights. Okay, they put it all up here, nothing to see, but there is a reason why they did it. The reason for this is that it shows what's called legislative intent. In other words, whenever this comes before a lawyer somewhere, and it will, right? The judge is going to say, the legislative intent behind this bill was to make very sure that, guess what? Parents had a right to direct their child's upbringing. That's the deal. You're going to see here, this has got, general statutes in it right here. Again, these are things you're going to find. So the main things that we're concerned with is this: public school unit policies to increase parental involvement. This means schools have to kind of go out of their way, if you will, to really make parents feel welcome, to let them know, hey, here's where you can find the testing information. Here's where you can find the consent forms. Here's where you can find the curriculum, and on and on and on. And I say, this is an obligation, right, that they've got to do. This is a responsibility that they need to do anyway. They just need to make it more upfront. We would all appreciate that. And that's, a great way to also repair the trust between principals, teachers, parents, and the community. I think this is a great part of this bill. Notifications of student mental health, very, very important. In other words, when you're giving these surveys, children are being diagnosed and actually treated in the confines of schools, and parents are not being told about this. Yes, this is happening. Believe it. That's going to have to be with parents and with parents only. Age-appropriate instruction for grades kindergarten through 4th grade. Some of the things I showed you earlier. Those are going to not be able to be shown to 4th graders. Don't say it's not happening. It is. We really want part of this bill to extend into at least the 9th grade, right? Remedies for parental concern. Private right of action. We don't have that now, but we will. In other words, if you have exhausted all other options and this continues, a parent will be able to sue. Super, super important. Surveys. Very important now. You can't ask this stuff unless there's a mandatory opt-in, not a passive, but a mandatory. There has to be a mandatory opt-in with each freaking survey. The surveys I've shown you, you can certainly darn well understand why. And also this, parental consent for treatment, very important. We know that students are being treated behind the backs of parents now. That is a fact. Parents need to be notified and give permission for a school to treat a child for whatever it is. Now, maybe you agree with that. Maybe you want them to be treated. That's not the point. You need to get permission first. So that's basically what's in the bill. The penalty, this is great. A healthcare practitioner be fined $5,000. And I think they can even have their license censured. So
right,
that's
is that you're not going to go and give this child therapy, etc., when they're suffering, but it's being done all the time. So it's a monumental bill. My sincerest regret is that it's not K through 12. You should not be doing any of the stuff we've been talking about in K through 12, period, point blank. Any normal person would agree with that. I think this is an issue that is going to bring people out in droves to vote. Why? Because it's a common sense bill. And that you see people advocating against that is just crazy.
This is wrong. What you are doing is wrong.
A Senate bill went to the House yesterday, very confusing, but it was voted on yesterday out of the House Health Committee, and it would prevent state funding for any hospital, any facility, any clinic that offers hormones, blockers to children. And so that would mean ECU and UNC would lose their funding. And so I'm sure that that's just a terrible outcome for them. And they know that they're going to be put out of business. Now, again, the response typically is them going up to the General Assembly, hooting and hollering that their hundreds of patients are going to kill themselves because they can't get the surgeries. They can't get the hormones. They can't get the blockers. But oopsie, they were missing. Why? Because their bosses said they're not doing any of that stuff. So you're welcome, General Assembly. You're welcome. You didn't have to sit through that today. All right. So I found this very curious. Sydney Batch was her usual fear mongering and disingenuousness. She's from Wake County. She's a senator from Wake County. She's constantly talking about being a survivor of breast cancer, and that's very important to survive that, and good on her. But she talks about it to the exclusion of every other policy issue, in particular when she's running for office or caught with radical positions. So being a survivor of breast cancer, it very much surprises me, this reaction today she had about legislation that would prevent cancer causing hormones given to children. So it makes no sense. It makes no sense to have survived cancer yourself, and yet you're hooting and hollering about the travesty that is protecting children from being injected with cancerous materials starting as early as age 8. Does it make sense to you? It's stupefying to me. Okay, so we wrote a response today about these bills that are very quickly this week moving through the legislature. And in the statement, we put in here, look, these bills are going to do the following: prohibit these, what we know now, irreversible gender transition surgeries and hormone therapies for minors. Again, common sense. Stop secretly transgendering children behind the backs of their parents. Common sense. Defend children from deceptive and predatory practices that push gender ideology behind children's backs, whether it's in the clinic, whether it's in the school or after school. These bills are going to help stop a lot of that. Also, banning schools from offering pornography to children. I mean, simple stuff. You go out there and you ask people that aren't political at all, they're going to give you a resounding note of approval for everything I've mentioned so far. Requiring parental consent before schools survey children about their sexual preferences and behavior. Common sense. Mandating schools inform parents when counselors and doctors treat them for health conditions. I don't even know how much plain spoken you can be. Again, this isn't for the base of the Republican Party, as you will read in newspapers. It is so common sense that I believe these issues will drive people who have been Democrat in the past over to our side. Why? Because they care about their children. They care about their grandchildren. They care about other people's children. Now, we've offered proof that all of these practices are happening here in North Carolina. We've offered a lot of proof. We're not going to stop offering proof. We're going to keep going. We're going to make sure that every single person in North Carolina before the election knows about the proof. We're going to put it to them front and center and let this be the topic of conversation at kitchen table dinners all over the state of North Carolina. This is something that people are going to be discussed. They should discuss it. These are the kind of issues that people should discuss because it's in and of and affecting every single person here in North Carolina. Now, you might say, well, gosh, I live in Asheville. What does ECU, what does UNC have to do with me? Well, did you know that ECU trains, I think somewhere on the order, well, it trains the most primary care or family doctors in North Carolina? I mean, they're being trained to screen children for transgenderism at 3 years old instead of helping treat cardiovascular disease, maybe diabetes, the other big drug addiction, perhaps, the other big killers of people, public health. So this is a danger to public health. It's a danger to children. It is a danger to families. These are common sense things. We need to start talking with our neighbors right now about this. You are not too isolated that you can't go to your neighbor who's watering the lawn and give them one of our articles at edfirstnc.org. That's not going to offend them. It's going to inform them. You're not going to offend, you're going to inform. Also, send this video to 10 people that you know. Hell, it could be people that you knew from high school, that you know have a family now. This is important. It is affecting everyone. I don't care if you're a 55-year-old and you don't like children. If you like to stay alive and you like to stay healthy and you're going to be going on to Medicare or whatever, you want your doctors paying attention to real, actual problems, then be trained on all of this social justice bullcrap that is going to endanger the lives and the happiness of everyone. So again, share this, and I want you to do this. I don't care if you've never done this before. Email your legislator and let them know that you support the Youth Protection Act, the Parental Bill of Rights. Let them know that today. I don't care if they're a Democrat. They want to hear from you. We have had in the past Democrats vote with us. These are common sense things. So call them, write them an email. All right. Pass this video along. Thank you.